Hello, and welcome to our Money Talks. My name is Trevor.
And I'm Steph.
I'm a financial advisor.
And I'm not.
And we're married. And today we are talking about budgeting.
Everybody's favorite topic. Do you work on a lot of budgets for your job?
Actually, I do not create a lot of budgets for our clients, but it is so integral to the financial plan that we talk a lot about budgeting and we provide the right tools for people to create their budgets for them and their households.
So what's a budget?
A budget is a tool that you can use to align your finances with your priorities. It can be a lot of work to set up. I think it can take months and months and months, can be very tedious. But once you set it up, it's actually going to put you way ahead of the majority of Americans.
Oh, so is budgeting not very common?
No, it's not common at all. 65% of Americans have no idea what they spent their money on last month.
Then what's the point? If so many people aren't doing it, then what is the motivation to budget? Are people just trying to get rich quicker? Or?
So I think that a lot of people will object to budgeting because of that reason. Well, I don't really have a strong motivation to get started, but people can find their motivation in a lot of different ways. Some people budget because they want to get some more security for their financial future. They feel like, if I can know where my money's going, then I can have some more control over my finances. So if 65% of people don't know what they spent their money on last month, that's a lot of people that feel a lack of control. So I think, first of all, security is a huge reason. Second reason that some clients will be budgeting is they want to get out of debt and they want to create a plan, get out of debt and stay out of debt. I think that's a fantastic reason. And the final reason for someone that's future oriented like myself is you'll have this goal in the future, like retirement or planning for the kids' college or an early retirement or buying a second home. And people will say, well, that's my goal. So how am I going to get there? And a budget is going to create the baby steps for them to get there. But I know I'm a future-oriented individual and you absolutely are not. So that's some of the motivations I see from some of my clients. But what would you feel like is the motivation for yourself?
I mean, I care about that stuff. It's not that I'm just like, whatever, retirement, kids' college, don't care about that. But I just don't think about those things as easily or as naturally as you do. What matters more to me is our relational health and the conflict and emotional stress that can come when we aren't communicating well about our finances is worse to me. So that is what motivates me to keep a budget and work on that together. Knowing that we're on the same team and that we've agreed about how we're going to spend our money. And that gives me freedom and frees me from some of that financial stress.
That's so interesting to hear. Has that always been like that for you? Or has that changed over the years?
Well, I mean, yeah, I have always felt stressed about talking about money. When we first got together, I was worried all the time that you were going to be mad. Not because you were mad all the time, but I just thought I don't want to tell Trevor anything that I'm spending money on, or I don't want to talk about money at all because we might not agree and then you're going to be mad and I don't want to do that. And it was in my mind, it was just easier just not to talk about money in my head to avoid that conflict. But really not talking about it just created more conflict. And I think I had a lot of shame with budgeting too. I viewed it as a rule that I had to follow all the time and never break or never change, rather than a tool that could serve our life together and our goals, and that we would have the freedom to change that up to serve us better as we needed to.
Yeah, I think that it certainly started off with the budget felt like the master to be serving. And if we weren't serving it well, then all of a sudden this shame cycle, rather than a tool to be used.
Right. So what was your motivation for things when we first started out?
My motivation, I think there was some of the relational stuff, and I think I've certainly grown more in that area. It's funny how when you start planning as a couple, able to work on money together, how much that planning actually teaches you about yourself.
Yeah.
And it exposes some of who you really are. As I've worked with people who have millions or people that just have a little bit, I've realized that money really just teaches you more about who you are. And the more you have it, the more of who you are really comes out. But I say all that to say that I feel like budgeting is a practice that teaches us more about who we really are as individuals. So, but my main motivation started out, we got married when you were 21 and I was 22. We got married and it was the week after I graduated from college, and we were going into ministry, and I had graduated from Bible school and I was going into pastoral ministry, and the church we were going to serve as interns, well, as I was going to serve as an intern, was going to pay me $1,000 a month. And our rent was $775 a month. So that left us $225 after rent. And I felt that there was a calling involved in this, that this was what God would have me do at the time. And I still believe that's exactly what he had me do at the time. And so for me, a budget was like, are we going to be able to survive? What do we need to do to make this possible? How much money do you need to make? So that we can actually do this thing that we feel like God's calling us to do. So that was my main motivation, was survival. When we first got married.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, probably most people's motivation who only have $225 left over after rent.
That is true. So we talked about our wives, but real talk, what was our experience learning, like as a freshly married couple, to work on money together?
I think yes, we did think that we were going to budget together, because like we had taken like a financial class that was like, you should budget. And I don't know if this was how you felt, but I was like, I'm going to be super wife and I'm going to do all the things that everyone says you should do in order to be super wife. And so that included having a budget, but also I'd never had a budget for myself, and I had never been married to another person that I shared finances with. So I didn't actually know what I was doing. At first, we used cash all the time because I felt like that would be like the holiest or most hardcore option or something. And so we took cash out of the bank for all of our budget categories and we put them all in envelopes. And I had all the envelopes in this little plastic Rolodex situation. And then one time I accidentally washed our entire month's budget in the laundry. And so we switched to debit cards. Fortunately, I also accidentally put it into the dryer. So we did still have all of our money. It was just very wrinkly stiff. We just smooth it all out so we could continue to live.
And not only did we have this, like we use envelopes, and if that's what you're doing, I think that's great. We're just
if you're not watching your month's budget, then you're good. Stick with the envelope system.
But what would happen is you held all the envelopes. And
in my purse or whatever.
In your purse. And so it was always your fault if we didn't have the right envelope for whatever expense it was. It was, come on, Steph, what the heck? Like, get with the program. So we eventually, we're doing that for a while, and then we went to debit cards. Talk about the relational aspect of those first couple of years. What was that like with us learning to do money together?
Oh, it was really hard. I think you felt a lot of pressure to be the main breadwinner, but I'm the main spender, not by nature, but I am buying the groceries and all that. So it was really hard to have those conversations where you're like, I'm making this much and I think we should have this much left over. And I'm like, well, but we need this much to make the household work. And, it was hard.
I think that it really, I said this earlier, but it really taught us a whole lot about ourselves and things that we were not ready to admit about ourselves and did not even know how to define that at that time. But now looking back at it, I can say I was really, really black and white about what we should spend our money on. And when you overspent in a category, it wasn't just Oh,
We
that's
forgot about
okay. We
that.
forgot about that expense. It was, you have sinned against me and God.
Yeah, and that's how I
How
felt
dare you?
too. Yeah. I don't know if you ever said that to me, but I did feel that way on the inside for sure.
Yeah, and so I looking back at it, and if you're just starting to budget as a couple and you're finding out there's all this tension in it and there's these moments, I think that's part of the deal. That's
Yeah.
part of figuring out how to do life together and growing together, and money as a way to really push you together if you are submitted to the idea of growing. And if you're able to say that, you might be wrong.
Yeah, I think what really, more than any tool or any app or technique that we've learned along the way, and we've learned some helpful things, but more than any of that, what has helped us the most is both being able to come to the place where we agree and realize together what matters most to us is our relationship and that we're on the same team and at peace there. So when we
Yep.
sit down to work on the budget, it's not about whether we get to do it my way or his way or how or whose fault or how much or whatever. It's okay, it's you and me on the same team against the finances.
Yeah.
How can we conquer this together rather than us against each other or competing or whatever?
Yeah, I think that what I really grew in, and it took years,
Yeah.
of us feeling tense about money, but coming full circle to now, I feel like what I really grew in was having a lot more graciousness in
Yeah.
our conversations and willingness to say, this is okay
Yeah.
for us to do.
And I think I have grown a lot in my assertiveness and being clear with what is necessary, where you've learned to be more gracious if we overspend in a category. But I've also learned to say, hey, that's not enough money at the beginning of the month. Instead of you being like, I think we can survive this month on $50 of groceries. Then I've learned to be like, no, that's not enough. Instead of being like, okay, I'll try really hard. And then getting to the end of the month and being like, sorry, it turns out we had to spend 100.
So we've talked about relationships and what that looks like to grow together in this. And a minute ago, you mentioned you're talking about the envelope system and then a helpful tool that we've started using along the way. What can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we tried several I think we even tried paper at one point to like writing down things that we spent money on, and we are both busy and can be scatterbrained in different ways. So like having a static thing like a piece of paper didn't work very well for us. We've used several different apps and services. The one that we have continued to come back to that's been the most helpful for us is the Every Dollar app. But even though we have found that app and it works well for us and it's our favorite one, even though we've tried other ones, we come back to it, it still took forever to get it to work for us. I think it took us 3 or 4 months to even get like a realistic, accurate budget of what we actually needed, what we actually spent every month. And even now that we have that and we've used this app for several years, we still tweak and make changes every month.
Yeah, so I agree. I think the Every Dollar app has been really helpful for us. I think that Wine app is another great app that we use. It's a little bit more technical. You need a budget. Mint is a great app as well. We like apps. Some people like Excel spreadsheets. Some people like paper. But if you are going to say to someone just starting off, give them some encouragement, some advice, what would you say to them?
Oh, don't give up. And remember that this is just a tool. A budget is just a tool to help you be more financially healthy. It is not a reflection of your worth. And when you blow it, you just got to rework it and try again. And you have to be willing to keep reworking it throughout 1 month and also month after month, several months in a row, so that it'll work for you. And you got to not every month is the same. You got to be mindful of external factors like medical events and holidays, and it doesn't always look the same, and that's okay. Just like every other powerful tool, a budget requires practice for you to be able to use it effectively. So cut yourself some slack.
Thank you so much for joining us for our very first episode of Our Money Talks. Here at Reverb Financial, we help clients invest toward their future selves. And if we're going to help you invest toward your future self, we find it so important that you have a budget that is directing the path along the way. So many people decide not to budget just because they feel it's so restrictive. What we've discovered over time as we work with clients is that creating a budget actually gives you more freedom than you've ever had before. And we find it so important for you to help define your why. If you can define your why, that's going to give you power even when you're feeling discouraged. It's called why power, not willpower. So if you have a strong enough why, if you have a strong enough motivation, that is going to help you work through those months that are just so difficult trying to get your budget in order. So if you have any questions or you need any help with investing, or maybe you just want to talk about your budget, we are happy to meet with you. You can reach out to us at reverbfinancial.com, book a meeting, and let's talk.